And we're going to, as they'll come in, here's CryptoLions from Ukraine. There's Mr. Rose, Kevin Rose from EOS New York, and Denny from EOS Nation. Deadlock. And if you have your YouTube turned on, if you could please mute the YouTube. There's a bit of a delay, so it winds up providing feedback. And Deadlock, I believe, are you from Singapore?
EOSIOSG, I believe.
Yeah.
Singapore. And Sungjae?
Yeah, Singapore.
Hello. It's Jay.
Is my volume okay?
Yeah. Sound good. Yeah. And then SJ, where are you from?
I'm Jay from HKEOS.
Okay, great. Great to meet you. And then, of course, Mr. Cox is here as well. Thank you for everybody for joining us. And so we'll keep the format pretty similar to how we've done this in the past, where we have a set of about 6 questions. We usually go through the first question just to meet everybody and hear their overall vision for the launch, and then we try to open the floor up and let you guys sort of interface with each other. We talk about the security, any kind of issues that you see, or hopes or dreams or optimisms, all that kind of thing. So, and of course, once again, Mr. Cox, we'd love to sort of open it up with you if we could, please.
Super. So I wanted to let folks know, I think everybody on the call probably by now has heard from Mao of EOS Real. And the block producers are outside of the purview of block.one, getting together with a bunch of other stakeholders to clarify the governance documents, EA team, and make any last-minute tweaks or changes that folks feel are needed to be made to launch when launch time comes. And of course, here in this chat, we're going to be talking about a lot of the technical aspects of the launch, including, and I'm sorry we don't have him on the line, Mr. John Milburn has done, I think, a lot to help everybody coalesce around what I hear secondhand. I'm not competent to assess it, but I hear is a very solid plan technically for how to launch and how to withstand potential denial of service attacks and so forth. And if we don't have EOS Canada on here, we don't have Mr. Bluejays on, we should all give a little hat tip to Alexander Bluejays for his incredible work with EOS BIOS, which I'm sure we'll hear a lot about. I'm just thrilled that as the main authors of the software have backed away a little bit here in the last few weeks, we've really seen the block producers and other stakeholders step in, I think, very aggressively, very maturely, very creatively to self-organize and begin to create the structures that only they can create. You can't get it from the software. You can't get it from top down. It's got to be bottom-up grassroots community. And by the way, I think that really started happening with EOS Go back in like December and November and January. That's when I saw the first little sprouts coming up through the ground, the first little crocuses and daffodils coming up. That was right here. And we're going to hear some interesting stuff from the block producers, I predict.
Thanks for that compliment, Thomas. We have Bassett, who just joined from EOSVibes. Welcome, Bassett. I'm not sure if you heard me. Anyhow, guys, let's get going. Kevin, do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah, sure. It's always the what is your vision for the launch? And what we ask for as we go around here, we just, if you could introduce yourself and mention which team you're with, where you're from, and then just give us your 2 or 3 sentences, what you kind of see happening around the launch the first few weeks. So we'll go ahead and start here. Let's see. We have CryptoLions, I believe is first. So guys, welcome. We'd love to hear more about your vision on the launch.
Well, hello, my name is Roman. I'm co-founder of CryptoLions. We are a EOS block producer candidate based here in Ukraine.
Oh, I am Bogdan, founder of CryptoLions, and probably we are most known by Jungle Test Network. What about launch, please, Roman?
Okay, so the launch. Well, first of all, we should, however we think it should happen, or wherever we stand on the little debate that has started, we should all be very happy that we seem to have attracted such a deep community of technical talent. The last time that Bogdan had to restart the jungle testnet, it took all of 30 minutes. Granted, that was a simpler problem. There was no token distribution, but we have quite, and it's not just us. We're probably not even the best team at launching, but there are quite a few teams perfectly capable of getting this off the ground. There are 3 categories of questions. There are some technical questions. Last night we hit what seems like a fairly significant resynchronization issue with the Jungle testnet, but the core devs are all over it, and I think that'll just go away. The most important category of questions are validation questions. I think validating is even more important than launching, where all the discussion seems to center. And then the third category of questions are the people questions. Should we all rally behind EOS BIOS, which seems to have, by my very rough estimate, not a majority of support, but a plurality of support? If we do that, is it unfair to all the teams that have been working quietly but very diligently practicing their manual launches? After some discussion, our position is twofold. Firstly, we support the idea made by Eric from Sweden and Michael Yates from EOS DAC that anybody who thinks they can and wants to launch does, and then we do a random selection of the successfully launched chains, and then all agree to rally behind the one that results from this manual selection. But the EOS BIOS guys already said they don't like that idea. Their argument is that it creates more problems than it solves. That debate is ongoing. The second part of our position is that we do not want to take the lead here. We will fall behind whatever seems like it's the main chain. Our niche seems to have become the Jungle testnet. We think we're creating value with it as a training and testing environment. We want to do that first and support whatever comes out of the community. I'm optimistic, even if there's no consensus. I think what we may see is multiple launches followed by a great act of humility with the goal of resulting in one chain. And if we see that act of humility, I think we should give it the praise it deserves. Last thing, you, Bluejay, Mr. Cox, Thomas, do not underestimate your great reputations that you've established over these last few months, and maybe this is an issue where it's worth weighing in on a little bit more forcefully than you have been in the past.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can hear the same thing from Mr. Cox. We'll finish going around here, and then we'll maybe open up the floor a little more. Let's jump over to Denny and EOS Nation for the next answer here. Hey, Denny.
Hey there, Kevin. Hey there, Bluejays. Thank you again for having me. It's a great honor to be on the show again with you guys. I also want to do a shout out for G on your first episode. He was talking about community engagement, which is great. We're also going to be attending the Tulip conference. Stefan and myself will be attending, so we're looking forward to see your first to see them. I think it was for the how we see the launch. We've also been following the EOS BIOS track. Right now, with the Scholar testnet, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to practice, again, multiple iterations of the stages. How the EOS BIOS boot works is that as more BPs go online, it gets stronger and stronger. So we'll be practicing that. Not all the BPs have been joining. So hopefully we can merge the sort of education part and hopefully onboard as many BPs to bring the confidence back to a lot of the block producers to join this. But the struggle is actually just the coordination between maybe 30 to 50 block producers. I think all of us that have launched testnets, it is really difficult to do a manual approach and to coordinate 30 different configurations. So the coordination, the consensus of how we're going to boot. So there's a boot sequence consensus, and there's also the consensus of which snapshot we choose to use, which is really important. We will be launching not multiple chains. We will be doing one launch for one mainnet, because I think that would bring the most confidence to all focus our efforts onto the one chain, as long as there's consensus on the boot sequence and the snapshot. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to see all these voting platforms and these wallets. I've just heard the EOSVibes was discussing about a multi-sig cold wallet. That's amazing. So I'm looking forward to see a lot of voting mechanisms and EOS wallets that make it easy to vote and to use the chain after we've launched it.
Very nice. Thank you, Denny. That was great. And we'll go over to Mr. Deadlock, please. Or actually, you know what? Quickly, looks like Kevin Rose, we'll jump over to you from EOS New York, and you're going to intro Buddy, I believe.
Yeah, so hey everybody, my name is Kevin. I'm co-founder of EOS New York with Buddy, who just jumped on. And don't worry, I'm not breaking the one panel for one block producer rule. I was just hanging out, holding his spot until he was ready to jump on. As everyone knows, we're all very busy preparing for launch, so just to keep it technical, wanted to have him here. So I'll throw it over to Buddy, and I'm going to sign off. And have a great show, everybody, and I'll be watching.
Cool, thanks.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Doing well,
good,
buddy.
Good. Yeah, Buddy, all we're doing is we're just introducing ourselves and then asking, what is your vision for the EOS launch, basically?
Hey, so yeah, I'm Buddy Deck. I'm head of block production for EOS New York, and my vision for launch is a hectic, 48 to 72 hours, where we're bootstrapping software that's less than 2 days old, and trying to make sure everything works as it's supposed to. So obviously there's a lot of challenges with that, and a lot of that goes with just communicating. Obviously the recent, not recent, but like this ongoing East and West, how do we communicate across that little bit of a divide, as well as deciding on an application to use. What boot process are we going to use, right? That's an ongoing conversation that we're having. So yeah, it should be a fun 72-ish hours.
Sounds great. Cool. And we'll go over to Deadlock, please, if you could introduce yourself and describe what your vision is for the launch.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everyone. I'm Deadlock from EOSG. I would like to give a short introduction about our team. We are a group of 7 blockchain fans based on Singapore with strong technical abilities. We came across study this back in April. Although our team is small, self-funded, and do all of stuff as part-time, we have achieved something. We have posted some articles on Summit discussing system contracts by source code, and we are hosting a testnet with version DOM 4.1 and voting portal. So for my vision for the launch, we are super excited and really looking forward to it. I believe that it will launch successfully with everyone's great efforts. And for the next 2 weeks, we will have a very busy schedule, and there will be a lot of preparation and rehearsals to be done. And to sum it up, it's excited, and we are confident, and it will be very busy. And we already practiced the BIOS launch using manual scripts. And I think the most difficult part is the validation. Since you have a lot of block producers, it's very difficult to cooperate with each other. So I will vote for the EOS BIOS since it's automated. But if the community decides to use a manual way, I think we need to find a way to solve the cooperation part. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll jump over to Jay, please, if you could introduce yourself and let's hear about your vision for the launch.
Hi, I'm Jay from HKEOS, and HKEOS is basically a dApps incubator, and we're based in Hong Kong. So our vision for launch, basically, so our team and a lot of other teams are part of this group called Block Producer Infrastructure. And we set this group up around 2 months ago, and a lot of people have joined and shared quite a lot of insight, including John Milburn. And he was telling us a lot about some security concerns that we have, and gave us a lot of recommendations on infrastructure and everything. And since around a week ago, we tried to incorporate all of these ideas and combine them into a testnet that more closely resembles what the mainnet launch would look like and simulate it better. So we've been hard at work and writing a lot of scripts for Ghostbusters testnet, which actually is going live very soon. And the reason I say this is because as of now, EOS BIOS seems to be the only automated solution for launch, but we're actually creating an alternative solution for launch, and so that the community has more than one way potentially to launch the EOS mainnet. And we're actually working with quite a lot of other block producer candidates that let their own testnets, such as CryptoLions. We agree with their idea of not relying on a single point of failure by launching multiple chains and then verifying them. And then if one of the chains survive, if a lot of the chains survive, hopefully, then we can randomly select one of the chains and then all combine from there for the mainnet.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, we'll go over to Basit.
I just want to add real quick. I want to give credit where credit is due. That's not our idea. We just support it. It came from Eric from Sweden and Michael Yates.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for the clarification. It's great. And Basit, let's if you could introduce yourself, please, and we'll hear your vision for the launch.
Hello, everyone. I'm Basit from EOSVibes. Actually, we are a dev development DAO and also the block producer candidate. In the next couple of months, we are planning to launch our first dev. It's named EOSVibes. And in future, we are also planning to launch a community proposed dev as well. So the launch process, I really like the launch process transparency, because it's very actually EOS launching its chain in a democratic way. So there will need to be a lot of communication between the BPs to make sure it will go without any problems. There are obviously some security threats that the BP community has pointed out, like the possibility of DDoS. Definitely that needs to be identified to the pre-launch of EOS mainnet. We also really need to harden the infrastructure security as well, like the failover scripts and the monitoring of the infrastructure and something like that. So that's our vision for the launch.
Great, thank you, Basit. And Thomas, if you could jump in there, and I guess Roman had a question as well. What are your thoughts there, Thomas?
I didn't catch the thing you want my thoughts on.
Roman, you had a question specifically for Thomas. Can you repeat it for us?
I would just encourage you to tune into this debate. I actually think how we launch is not the most important thing. Verifying is more important. That deserves more focus than launching. But there is a small disagreement. I actually think it'll come out just fine in the end, whether we come to consensus or not. But there is a small disagreement in the community about how to launch, and I would encourage all the neutral parties here who are not themselves block producers to tune in and maybe express an opinion a little more forcefully than you've been expressing opinions in the past.
Can you describe the scenario a little further? I guess some of us are unfamiliar with controversy.
Well, it's the questions I mentioned. Do we all rally behind EOS BIOS, which from a distance looks like a great project? I'll point out that Dan Larimer has complimented their group. That's significant. The concerns are that it's new software, and rallying behind it, ignores the efforts, a lot of great efforts that happened elsewhere in the community. Some people, not us, but they proposed letting everyone launch, everyone who wants to, but with the promise that we'll do a random selection and then let all the chains all the chains except the chosen one just sort of dissolve. So that's another option, but the EOS BIOS, from their perspective, that creates more problems than it solves. So there is a little bit of an impasse. If it was happening today, I think the most likely course of action would, like I said, would be multiple launches followed by a great act of humility, where some teams will just swallow their pride and rally behind one chain. But it's not today. We do have a little bit of time, and we may benefit from a neutral evaluation of this impasse.
Thomas, I'll let you handle that one if you feel.
Oh, I know that I don't know enough to have an educated opinion, and uneducated opinions are not terribly useful at times like this. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut and say, absolutely, I'm happy to tune in. And at the very least, I'll ask questions, maybe even provocative questions. And if I ever get to a point where I have an opinion that might pass as educated, I'll share it. But I won't promise that I'll reach that level of understanding. What you guys do is magic to me.
Well said.
I'll add, by the way, that having a really good, healthy, respectful debate on multiple approaches is exactly what we need. I'm delighted we're having it now. You know, automated versus manual launch, single versus multi-chain. There's probably good things to be said in all cases, and getting to know how we agree and disagree with one another is the single most important team building thing we could do right now. So learning how to disagree on the technology while being agreeable as people, because this is going to happen again. There's going to be some big bug. There's going to be a DAO hack equivalent. It won't be that screwed up, but it'll be screwed up in its own magical way. Mm-hmm. We're all going to be like, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be, and we want to fall back on whatever muscles we build in this conversation right here. So that's fabulous.
Great point, Thomas. Excellent point.
Yeah, very well said. Anyone else who'd like to chime in, actually?
I guess I can chime in also. I know I think we've all done manual launches. What brings the EOS bias, it was actually written, it was kind of designed by the article from Thomas Cox, is essentially to decide also the boot node, right? If a lot of these manual approaches, you just define your own boot node and appointing the 20 block producers. All of that is actually very complex on a manual approach. For the Scholar testnet, we haven't achieved 15 greater block producers. So we've always been under the 21 block producers on launch date. So to coordinate above 21, to have, let's say, 22 nodes all coordinating on a single chain is very, very difficult. So that's why we agree that we should all put into one, if we all agree that we should all put into one effort, it's a lot easier to have very reputable block producers all putting one effort into one and not spreading all ourselves thin. Because if we spread onto 5 different chains, then we might have credible people on different chains when we should all kind of join together and to have the most credible block producers on a single effort. So mostly my concern is having the effort onto one team and not have 5 different teams and then spread the expertise thin. I'd like to see all the expertise in one group instead of 5 different groups. That's my point of the...
Dennis, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You say when you've done your manual launches, you've done 15 initial producers. Have you ever then added more after launch to get above 20?
Yeah, we can add with the set producer.
Okay, great.
So the set producer, you can kind of just bump them up after. The voting mechanism is kind of a new version 4. So we can always have, let's say on the initial launch, we were about 16 or so. And that took about a day or so process because as the time zone, obviously for a mainnet launch, that would happen a lot faster and people would wake up at 2 in the morning or 3 or 6 or whatever the time zone is.
I don't know. I might sleep.
People should wake up. So it's really hard to coordinate 5 different teams all differently, and especially above the 22 mark. If we're doing off chains with less than 22 and less than 22 skilled block producers, it'd be very hard to say that we have 5 different solid chains. It'd be better to have one really solid chain with all the expertise onto that one, and then let the mechanism, the voting mechanism. A lot of these manual approaches, the people that are organizing these manual approaches will not dictate, but will decide that they are the boot node. So for the Scholar testnet, I booted the node. There was no random play to announce that I was the boot node. I was the only one that wanted to do it. And I think Boham for CryptoLion and Eric from Sweden, we've all been the boot node. It's a lot of weight on the shoulder. So the EOS BIOS boot randomly selects that boot node, which a manual approach won't tell you which boot node is going to go, unless you manually decide it yourself. It's not an algorithm.
Can I tell you what my rationale was for the way I wrote that story? So I was talking to Dan several months ago about, you know, the old code from back in September. You had a Genesis block with all the opening balances and your initial 21 producers, just hard code. It was just hard, and that would work. It would totally work. We know it worked. It did work. And I thought to myself, man, whoever those first 21 are, they're going to get this big leg up, and it's going to, you know, even if it's a fair process, you know, it'd be easy for someone to feel that it wasn't fair. And man, it felt ugly. It felt risky politically to have that be the way we would do it. No matter what process I could dream up, it just didn't feel safe to me. And part of the lack of safety was the sense that who the heck am I to pick 21 people and know that they're all really like have their stuff together? Am I competent to assess that, me personally? And even if I am I like setting myself up as kingmaker now? Well, that's not very decentralized. And so I was really feeling the sense that, you know, we've got to let the community like self-create this. And so as I was creating, I was thinking, you know, the launch is unlike anything else we ever do. After it's launched, if you can run the code and join and set producer and get votes, you should be fine. But that initial creation of balances, creating a system contract, not like sticking your own, I pay myself 1/1,000,000th of every EOS, you know, little clever. Some guy did that, by the way, in another CryptoLions I read about. Some developer actually wrote a little thing in there, checked it in GitHub, just paid himself like once a day, he'd get a little tax taken out of it. I'm like, seriously? And when he was caught, his rationale was, well, I did a lot of work. Dude, you've just destroyed all trust in you. So I'm thinking, how do we get from zero to something, even though we all know how, you know, new producers will get selected once the voting is up? So I thought, okay, number one, who is technically competent to launch this thing? We don't want Blocky McBlockface and 286, you know, driven by a hamster wheel, like in there doing something crucial and screwing it up. So I said, well, okay, what if we have a launch pool that's just block producers selected by other block producers for their excellence in producing blocks? You know, Eric from Sweden is in that list. Everybody on this call is on that list. We could all think of 3 or 4 others that we think, yeah, if it comes down to it at my elbow when things get a little weird during launch. And then, so that's just the go live group. And then once it's up, if they all get voted out and Blocky McBlockface gets these votes, he probably can't screw it up too badly once it's launched, right? The window of harm and risk is gone. And so I wanted this sort of self-selected or community-selected subgroup somehow to rise up. And I think we're doing that now. You all know who you trust. If we polled everybody blindly, we could find the top 50. Easy, easy, easy. Then the second thing was, well, who actually like pulls the trigger? And so both from a safety perspective, we don't want them attacked, and also it probably isn't fair to just pick one guy and let him, you know, forever after in his marketing materials, you know, he's going to brag about being the BIOS boot node, right? Assuming it goes well. I mean, he'll bury it if it goes badly, but if it goes well, you know he'll brag forever. And I say he advisedly because we're all dudes here. So a random selection using a seed that's like the last 5 digits of the next hash of next Bitcoin block or something that you can't see in the future, but once it's passed, it's deterministic. So that kind of a random seed, stick that in, you got your boot group, and then you pick one based on a provably unpredictable thing, and then you pull the trigger. And then, God bless him, Alexander saw that and said, you know, this looks really complicated. I'd much rather do this with a script. I'm like, oh my God, if I could do it with a script, I would too. Because I'm a big DevOps guy. I'd rather build from a script than do anything manually. I guess I'm lazy that way. And he just took it to the 9th degree. But what I'm sensing is, because, you know, it's been this incredible project, largely Alexander, that a lot of folks are feeling like, well, where's my contribution? And hey, wait, there's a lot. Well, if we get too reliant on automated tools, then we won't even know what's going on really. You'll get your hand, you no longer have your hands on the wood. You can't feel it like a craftsman. You can't really tell what's up. And so, yeah, that's a really valid point. So maybe multiple chains launched simultaneously also resisted to attack. And okay, you name yourself BIOS boot, but 5 other guys did that too. Okay, and if 3 of them get shot in the head, metaphorically speaking, you know, getting it knocked offline somehow, okay, great. The community's unharmed. You could even come back from the dead in an hour or two and be a contender. So you could make a case for either approach being really solid. I know if I were launching once a week for the next 50 weeks, I would totally want it automated eventually. And I can see, I'm guessing, I'm projecting a little bit, that there's resistance to a heavily automated approach that folks may not feel much authorship of, may not fully understand. I know I don't understand it. That may remove from monitoring some crucial early steps. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I think that there are a few degrees of how manual or how automatic a launch can be.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's a spectrum. It's not a one or the other. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really black and white. For example, what we're planning to do for our Ghostbusters testnet now is we wrote this algorithm that basically randomly selects a couple of that has a group, a sub-team called BIOS opt-in, where candidates that want to become the BIOS net joins this team. And then through the Keybase system, we find out which usernames or which teams are in that opt-in group, and then we randomly select out of them. So that's automatic, and then we also pull a genesis from that BIOS node that gets chosen, and then everything starts automatically from there. And then for us, what we've done is we've sort of divided the steps of our scripts so that like part of it is automatic, and then you can check in the middle, and then you go on to the next step and so on. So I guess there isn't really a black or white, like this is completely manual, this is completely automatic. There are different approaches to how people could launch automatically, I guess.
So Jay, is your code, your launch code, your scripts and so on, are those in GitHub? Those, can we see those?
Yeah, it's public, and people have been trying to test it out, raising issues,
cool.
Pull requests. I mean, this community is really quick and awesome at testing your software out and then giving feedback. So yeah.
I can also add the 5 cents in this field. So we are testing a lot since down 2, and on down 3 we have almost 100 participants, and it's really was hard to manage all these teams. But on down 4 we have voting, and it helps a lot to automate everything. We do not need register every producer, they do this alone. But what I saw each time starting the jungle test network, that first I create the automatic script, but then after I return it for 8-step scripts that do step by step, and you can see the result of them, so you can control over the startup process and see the result on each important step, like distribution, like issuing, creating, and allowing first contracts. And sometimes there are some issues, and when you do this step by step, you can control this and repeat the action and do the same things to make the result the best in the end. So, and why I really like this this approach with 5 launches or any number of launches at one time, that there are different approaches to launch. It's very interesting. For example, Ghostbuster Network create a super secure launch. Alexander from BIOS create automatic with some confirmation, and the idea is okay. And I think we need more think about and unite and think about verifying this chain, verifying the data that's what distributor, so that we can be sure that this blockchain is correct. There is no more data that was in snapshot and was nothing loose on the way. So, and what about the random selection? We have some brainstorm 2 days ago, and there was some idea to create a Ethereum contract that will do the random selection. So it's possible also, and yeah, it's our thoughts.
I need to hop in real quick. I got to show you something. Earlier today, I snapped this photo. It's Dan and me in front of the big monitor we got set up, and it's the jungle testnet in the background. FYI. And it's not that we're playing favorites. It's but we're the ones that put out a URL to a monitoring page. And if other people would like themselves up on that screen, you got to get better at your PR people. Send us the link, man. We'll look at it. We are fascinated by what's going on out there with you guys. It's very interesting and important to us to have that information. So just wanted to say, hey, Jungle Testnet.
We're screenshotting
we're aware of
playback.
I would like to also second that the Jungle Testnet has had a really good monitoring tools. They're actually the first ones to really kind of create this monitoring tools. And then as other testnets show up, I'm like, hey, I know that. That looks like the Jungle Testnet. So I think anyone who builds community tools around it, voting platforms, monitoring tools, a lot of BPs have shown really great talent through the development of these testnets. And yeah, so good credit. I'm on the Jungle Testnet as well. I think every BP is. So it's a really great tool. And I know Boham has been working really hard to support all the BPs, the forking of the chains. So a lot of credit to them and a lot of support that they're doing across different BPs as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, just to keep it moving. So if anybody, these seem to be a little bit more open now. So just chime in if you feel like you should. So the next question is, what challenges do you see, and what risks do you think that are the big ones out there right now?
Well, I think it's, as we've been talking about, it's figuring out the consensus, right? And figuring out how we want to boot this thing. And I think we're kind of narrowing it down. I mean, I think it comes down to, there's two camps, right? There's some number of launches of chains that will launch, and then they'll randomly pick one to be the main net. And then there's go big, everybody goes to the same launch, and then we just go from there. And that's all well and good. But I think one of the big things that was mentioned a little bit, but we haven't been talking about a lot, is who's going to be verifying the information is correct, right? Is the snapshot correct? Are all the accounts with the right balances? We've got the EOS.io snapshot channel is closing up shop soon as block.one kind of moves away and kind of lets the community take over. And I think we need more eyes on that. We need more eyes on what the verification means and what who's going to be doing that, and can it be an independent entity, or is it going to be a bunch of different BPs deciding and that? So I think that's the real main challenge for me, at least, besides the launch, is verifying the launch was valid.
Yeah, for me, sorry. I think that security is definitely a huge concern, and the number one rule in security is that you need to assume that attacks will happen during launch. And if we assume that they won't and be optimistic, then we won't be able to prepare against them and have things, have our defenses ready, right? So for us, like the reason why we like the multiple chain thing is because we believe that it adds a little like soft net cushion where some of the chains could go wrong and get attacked and go down, but we still have a lot of failovers basically in terms of the number of chains. And the reason why like we have done the private mesh security, this is all the idea of John Milburn and stuff that he recommended, is because he's really the guy that knows about how all of this works, all the attack vectors that could occur. And he has all the experience in terms of, I think, security. And I think he knows a lot in that field. So that's why we've been implementing a lot of these things that can help mitigate attacks and decrease the number of threat vectors during launch.
Yeah, I can add a little that if we start a few networks separately, then it will be harder to attack every network because there are many. Yeah, and other things that. Okay, let's continue because I forget. I lost my idea.
I don't know what you were gonna say. I just want to second what Buddy said from EOS New York. More focus on the verification.
Yeah. It's connected to verification. So I don't think we need only one solution to verify the chain. It's better than it will be much than better solution. Then we can say that it is true. So, and I think that will be good to have the cross solution. For example, one solution that check snapshot and blockchain, the second blockchain with Ethereum blockchain. And if we will have as much as possible solution that will be do the cross check, it will be better. I think, for verification.
So, and we have a comment here from the chat. It says, my hope is that over the next week, we can bring in best tools and practices from multiple test nets and converge on a best of breed consensus for the launch itself. Any thoughts or comments on that particular comment?
Well, definitely best breed for sure. I think one of the most important thing will be, even though we might be using different tools to boot the main net, we would sort of agree on the boot sequence. In the EOS BIOS, there's a YAML file that actually has a boot sequence. Now that YAML file doesn't need to be interpreted exactly, but one of the key things actually is the RAM allocation. So this was a topic in the BIOS boot, was the RAM allocation. Now, how much RAM we allocate at the boot will determine the price of RAM for the speculators or for the BPs. Now this has jumped from, which was initially 32 terabytes worth of RAM, which would allow speculators to buy at a really low price. And now I think we've had a consensus of 24 gigabytes of RAM that will be created at the boot launch. Those boot consensus is decided by the BIOS. So even if we do launch with different tools, different applications, we still need to kind of find a consensus on how we do the boot, even though we might use different tools. Because right now the RAM will be based on the Bancor algorithm, and that will determine a really different price point of the initial first buyers and those speculators. That might skyrocket the price for RAM and make all the BPs have to increase their RAM allocation, but nobody will use it. It will just be speculators. Or we tone it down to have a low RAM allocation. The price will be a little bit higher for RAM, and as every week or month, we can increase the RAM allocation as we go. But the first boot sequence for RAM allocation will be very important. That first deterministic, see if is it 24 gigabytes, is it in the terabytes? As long as we can all agree on consensus for that would relieve a lot of that would create at least consensus for that.
And I should have clarified actually that previous comment was from Jem in the chat, and he's got another one here, and he looks awfully young in his picture to be saying these kind of things, but anyway, he says he doesn't believe that the multi-launches are necessarily the way to go. He says that we can do better. We need automation. We need randomization amongst a small group of capable producers. We need better security tools. Any comments from anybody on that?
I'm afraid to agree too loudly because someone will say, "Great, what are your thoughts?" And I don't have any. But I totally get the point. And on the one hand, I don't mind the idea of people, multiple people doing different things and having some redundancy that way. I mean, it's very decentralized, hey. On the other hand, it can be kind of wasteful and even distracting potentially. Having fewer attempts with more heads, more wise heads, could be it. And I think someone earlier said having our most technical people concentrated in one effort. Boy, that felt really good to me when I heard that. I don't know, steering by my internal sensations is wise, but I did want to share that felt like maybe good counsel.
I have just one little concern about the EOSVibes solution. Currently, the solution is using Docker. I'm a Docker fan totally, but I cannot find a way to use the command line to interact with the Docker node. So I think this might be a problem because not everyone is a Docker expert. They may need to write their own scripts to do the verification. So I think this is the issue we need to solve.
Just to add on the Docker, also if we could coordinate the releases. So right now 4.1 is not out on a Docker build, so it makes the deployments also not in sync. So having each of the releases also have a Docker file to be synced with the releases with the Docker builds.
Totally. The Docker file and Docker images works fine. But my concern is that is it possible to use EOSVibes to boot Node EOS, the pure C++ build executable to boot? If that one is possible, then I think we are more confident on the booting solution because we can use the official executable and we can use CellUS command line to interact with it. We can do verification. We can write on bash on our own favorite way, like Python, like Bash, like Go, like C++. I think there will be benefit all of us if it's possible.
I don't want to derail the conversation and make it about EOSVibes, but yeah, that is possible. That's how I do it. I don't use Docker with my EOSVibes scripts. You just change your hooks to call the NodeOS and all that directly. Heads up.
Yeah, and I also think on that note, it would be easier to debug and like as a community solve a problem if something goes wrong during launch, if everybody's more comfortable with what they're using.
So get more drills, more practice in our remaining few days is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I think the community needs to do a better job of taking over some of like the GitHub repo that we started talking about in the block pros. We need to actually take it and make it ours because block.one is only going to be around for so much longer. In terms of driving this thing, we need to start figuring out how we're going to communicate. Is it Telegram? Is it EOS Go forums? Is it Keybase? I mean, these types of problems are non-trivial and we got to figure out what platform and how we're going to communicate everything. And that goes to figuring out what size RAM and what increment we're going to increase the delegated RAM and all that kind of thing.
Good points.
Now, is there a consensus on the actual problems there? I mean, can we list those out and then can we start knocking them out one by one?
I'll tell you what I just heard and someone chime in. So number one, we got to know internal communication channel. There needs to be one prime, one backup. And it needs to be something that everyone's at least reasonably comfortable with or that no one absolutely hates or that doesn't work in their geography or whatever. Communications one. Recap the others.
Well, we need to figure out who's going to own the community GitHub, right?
Even for the short term, even if it's just for 30 days, we need a short list of very trusted people who lock that thing. They got to know Git, which I don't.
Yeah, so we already have a group going on that. EOS Go has volunteer to put it under our repository temporarily until we figure something else out. So we have NS James, Cesar Rodriguez, and Phil Mesnier all working together in a group to clone and fork the code.
We got to get the word out on that, and if is everyone on this call okay with that group, NS James and Phil Mesnier and EOS Go? No one's looking for repulse.
Yep.
Maybe we should just like settle on that as not so broken as to require a revolt. I'm not looking for consensus. I'm looking for I have no principled objections. Okay.
And the only person I would like to add to that list, if he'll take it, is John.
Milburn?
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, we've reached out to John as well. And also, we're looking for folks maybe from China. We'd love some representatives from China and Korea as well. So if you know of anybody who may be neutral, help us reach out to and help spread the word about this. But yeah.
I'd love to know what neutral means.
We don't know either.
Okay. We're all doing our best here. So yeah, ownership of the repo, communications channels. EOS Real is doing, I think, a phenomenal job of organizing a last pass through all the governance documents to make sure that there's real community buy-in on their settings, because the stuff that's in the GitHub is going to be just defaults. They won't have been really run through the community to search out those principled objections. And I think that's a very important thing that I'm very content for them to just quarterback that, and I'll do my best to participate. Although I'm going on vacation for 4 days over the long weekend, just so you know. You heard it here first. And testing, who are our lead people for validating initial balances and validating the initial contracts from the system contracts? Is there one approach? Should there be more than one approach? Who feels that they can own that? Would be a good question. And that, again, should be 2 or 3 heads working on that. I go with the launch approach, full automated, semi-automated, one start, multiple starts. I hope someone's writing this down, because I'm not going to remember this later. Let's see. That feels like most of it. What am I missing? I'm missing at least one thing.
I would just say for the short term, I know the big concern is the voting mechanisms. I know EOS Go is pushing a community-driven voting platform and portal.
Oh, the visual one, yeah.
Yeah, right now there will only be a command line, and not everyone is a command line person. And yeah. So, and I know that Deadlock, I don't know if he's announced, but they're also building some voting mechanism. A lot of different VPs are pushing having different platforms with different voting mechanism. And I think I've heard from Deadlock and Meet One that they're trying to also implement it with WeChat. So for the WeChat, the Chinese community, they're going to,
that is the coolest
maybe Deadlock, you can share your fame. How is that project going along there, Deadlock?
I'm sorry to say that, but the WeChat doesn't support the JS, the EOS JS, so we cannot do it that way. But we are building Meet One is building an app which can securely has the wallet and can do the voting. We are working on that side by side, and we are still building our voting portal and waiting for to see whether we can contribute to the community, the NSGEMS project, the official voting portal. But still, we already have a plan. We are doing it now and in the app version. So I guess should be ready before the release of the mainnet.
Perfect. I think we're all looking forward to have really good wallet support and voting mechanism, whether it be through the browser or application or anything, right? Desktop. I think all of those tools will be built by the community, and I think that would be the 30-day plan because that will be very critical. Another thing too is a lot of exchanges have actually shown up as a block producer, having exchanges gives the all the token holders, that's where the tokens are. There's a lot of tokens are on these exchanges. And if we have some of these BPs that are exchanges that offer these voting mechanisms, it would still keep the tokens in a secure place and a reliable place, but offer a easy solution for token voters to not have their tokens be removed from a safe place, and then enable EOS to be able to vote. So I think a lot of voting tools will come out, hopefully sooner than later.
I'm planning to vote command line as soon as I can get
command line. Me too. Me too.
Some tokens.
That's why we prepared a command line that you can create on the monitor, and you can vote with command line, but prepare it for you.
Command line is the way to go, but I think a lot of token voters are it's like voodoo magic, right? They open the command line and they don't know what's going to happen.
That's not the commercial retail approach. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out. Go ahead, Bluejays.
I was just going to say, even if it is a script that we can run for everybody.
I'd like to point out as well the voting portal that's in the works. We were just helping to spread the word. Actually, it's a wider community initiative. A lot of block producer candidates behind it, and it's going to help voters research the candidates as well. There'll be a lot to it. So, NS James is on the project as well as a bunch of block producers, and Caesar, I think, as well. So,
Eric.
Yeah, and Eric as well. And
Katie's, I think, leading the fundraising, and I will say here for the first time, I'm going to put $500 of my own money into that project.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. That's
Match
great.
me if you dare, gentlemen and ladies.
Also, we want to announce that EOS Nation has also did a contribution today for the voting portal, and we're also looking forward to help and contribute in coding, in any sort of effort that we can do with NS James. I know that scatter will most likely be a strong component of that voting mechanism. EOS Nation also offers their support for the community engagement and the voting portal, and we're fully backing up this project of yours.
Let's go ahead and we'll jump into the last question too, for everybody, as we're running low on time here. Let's go to who you guys trust to work with on the launch. You know, this is a question we ask every time for the block producer panel, and as you guys have worked with each other now for many months, for a lot of you, we'd just sort of love to hear your top technically proficient and most secure block producer candidates that you feel most comfortable launching with.
Not counting yourself.
That too. And we'll just go ahead and go around. Yeah, go ahead and take it away.
I mean, I'll start. I mean, everybody on this call, obviously, I've seen them in a ton of test nets. They're all great. CryptoLions, leader of Jungle Testnet, EOS Tribe. They led Arrowhead, and then Sweden, EOS Rio, who I've been working with very closely, and then EOS Cafe, Calgary, Dublin. I think there's a few more that I'm forgetting, but yeah, definitely a lot of great block producer candidates out there.
Okay, I will continue. So there are really a lot of amazing people which I met for the last few months, and I don't see everything what's happening, but I can say about a few people that are really good and working hard to make EOS better. And this Eric from Sweden, it's Igor from EOS Rio, Brazil. They have a very good team and work a lot. They work together with Eugen from EOS Tribe, from HKEOS Korea, and they working on the good solution of secure mesh network. EOS 42 Charlie that works on the DDoS solution. EOS Africa Kushi that works on the failover solution, yes, for a block producer. EOS Duck Michael Yates with fantastic ideas. EOS Canada Alexander with BIOS Boots solution. EOS Asia with also with DDoS protection. EOS Cafe Sayed from Calgary. EOS Argentina that would also owns test network and create faucet. EOS SG that built voting portal, Dublin, and more. Basit, EOSVibes who helps working on Snapshot, and a lot of more people. I would like just to say that this amazing, creating people, creating work environment that inspires all to do more. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody on this call, obviously, it's been said, EOS Canada, obviously, EOS Tribe, Jesta and Roland from that are Steemit witnesses have been crucial for some of the community testnet stuff, and as well as the BP infrastructure channels. EOS 42, EOS DAC, Marcin from EOS Green, EOSVibes, EOS Gravity. Yeah, like, I mean, obviously, you know, CryptoLions are at the forefront. Blocksmith, Craig Murray has led a lot of good discussions and counter arguments to a lot of the things that we've all been saying. So I think there's a lot of, it's empowering to see this all happening and all kind of coming together in the last couple of months, you know, and everybody's just really showing up.
We will go with the EOS Canada for the BIOS tool, and the next one is EOS Argentina for their smart contract unit testing platform. That is really cool. And obviously the CryptoLions, and the other one EOS Tribe. Thanks.
Very good. Is that everybody?
Oh, well, for EOS Nation, we don't want to leave anyone out. We've been working with a lot of different BPs over the past month. We would actually just like to highlight the different type of criterias that we would find in a block producer. So those criteria could be integrity, professionalism, transparency, accountability. Block producers that have successfully launched or initiated community testnets. There's many testnets out there. You all know who you are. People who have also written technical articles. We found a lot of technical articles on Steemit that have helped BPs learn more through documentation and education. Also the community tools. A lot of people are building a lot of different community tools. Those are really important criteria for block producers. And the last would be exchanges, because again, when I mentioned the trust that people are putting their tokens in that exchange, it does have a credibility. And if they can offer easy solutions for voting mechanisms and the ERC token swaps, those would be a good player. So we would more point it to criterias, and those are our highlights for BP criterias.
Good deal. Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. And go ahead.
I'm so impressed in the recent months by a lot of teams. They have done a great job to make the community better. So I still remember when we first come to this community and released our first testnet, and Eric, Jungle, and Scholar testnet congratulated us immediately and give us some many helps and information. A lot of thanks to them. And also the EOS Canada, the EOSVibes is a good project, and the EOS New York doing a great job in the governance. And besides that, there's a lot of people are doing great job, like BP infrastructure groups. They are doing a great job in the DDoS attack test and the stress test. And there's other teams are doing mobile phone smart contracts. So there's a lot of names in my head, but I cannot remember I cannot state that every name. So there are many names, and I think a lot of people in the launch group has a valid criteria, as stated by Dennis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. CryptoLions, I believe did you guys go?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Any last thoughts? Kevin and I were, very pleased to have you guys on, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I would like to chime in and just say it's been wonderful hearing you guys go back and forth. And go ahead, CryptoLions, I see you.
I just want to reiterate key ideas that I thought we had in this discussion. For me, there are two. More focus on validating. Launching is fun. Validating is arguably more important. And second idea is if the non-block producer parties, thank you for all the work you've been doing, if they might tune in more closely to the debate. There is a little bit of an impasse on how we launch. And the problem is that any of the proposed solutions will probably work fine. So it's the tyranny of choice that we're facing. Those are good problems to have.
We also heard about the communication tool. Is that something that it's a hot item, or are you guys good with that?
No, I think we need to figure it out, and we need to figure out how we're going to be able to talk as as the elected BPs in the future, and what the correct communication channel is, and start getting used to that technology now if it's different from the ones we've been using.
Yeah, and in terms of Telegram, I don't think it's very safe to use Telegram, especially if it's a group, if it's a big group. It's not as secure as something like Keybase, which we've been testing.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that right after we're done here on this video, hop onto the Block Bros Telegram channel and let's drive some clarity around the decision for communication channel. We may not decide today, but I think we can decide how we're going to decide in the next, say, 30 minutes. Okay? Yes? Perfect. Nods? Yes? Thank you. Let's do that.
Okay, guys. It was amazing having you guys on. Thanks for coming.
I just want to, if I can add to last say. So we've got actually Yves Larose, so EOS Nation is really proud to announce that Yves Larose, our co-founder and CEO, is actually doing a 3-week China and South Korea tour, visiting and joining the sort of China community and the South Korean community. I think later on after this episode, you'll be announcing all the meetups. So we've got a lot. EOS Nation is announcing a lot of meetups in the coming weeks. We're going to be doing some support for the Hack Till Dawn, the 28th of May. Even though it's been pushed, we're still going to be doing a dev event. And tomorrow we've actually got a meetup that CryptoLions produced a video for us in Odessa in British Columbia. So we've got a lot of things coming up on our touring schedule, and hopefully you can follow us. And we'll be doing blogs and vlogs for the China community, and hopefully we'll be bridging bridges through these two communities. West means East, and we've written a Steemit article about it. So looking forward to see everyone, and thank you for having us, Bluejays and Kevin.
Yeah, thank you guys, and for those of you who it's really late right now, hopefully you can get some sleep, and thank you guys for coming on and making the most of this. Appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and sign off. Have a good night, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.